This is Supervisor Jay Schneiderman of the town of Southampton, and I would like to call this meeting of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 28th day of April, 2020. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. All right, I know this is not easy doing these town board meetings using teleconferencing. So thank you everyone for your cooperation. We'll try to get through this with the least amount of technical glitches as possible. All right, Sunday, our town clerk is part of this. I'd like to ask Sunday to call the roll at this point.
Certainly. Supervisor Schneiderman.
Present.
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Here.
Councilman Martin.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Schiavone.
Here.
All right, thank you. Before we get to the rest of the agenda, I've had a request from our town tax receiver, Teresa Kiernan, to make an announcement regarding the second half taxes. Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to make a brief statement about the second half of property taxes. At this moment, we do not have a delay on the due date. So May 31st is the due date. That happens to be a Sunday. So on June 1st, payments. At the moment, while Town Hall is still closed to public access, we have available payments can be made online, by telephone. People can come in person to the lobby, but now we've set up a new service. It's called curbside service. So if you pull up to the front of Town Hall, there's 2 parking spaces designated for property taxpayers, and our phone number is on the sign. So if a person does not want to get out of their car, they can call my office and someone will come out and deal with them appropriately with appropriate gear and from a distance. That's for people who don't want to get out of their car. We don't have any way to set up a drive-through, so this is our next best solution for that. Also, people can go to B&B or People's Bank if they're paying their second half only and have their property tax bill in their hand. And for those people that are paying cash, that is the preferred method. Go to either of those banks, any branch. So any branch that exists for B&B or People's Bank, not just in the town of Southampton. And by telephone, if you call us, we will take your payment over the phone. Electronic check service is available by telephone. There's no fee for it. We do have to charge the fee on the credit cards, which is 2.5%. That's been that way for a long time. And we will have extended hours when it gets closer to June 1st. And of course, we're assuming right now that the due date will not change. That is subject to change because I know, as Jay was mentioning earlier, it's still up for discussion amongst the Supervisor Association. But right now we have to plan for June 1st as the final day to pay property taxes without penalty. I think I've hit all the high notes. Anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions for our tax receiver?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Real quick housekeeping. This meeting was originally scheduled as an evening meeting. It was shifted from 6 p.m. to 1 p.m. So let me just make sure from either our attorney or our clerk that that was properly noticed and provisions were made for the public to weigh in at this time.
That is correct.
All right, Sunday too, you were able to notice a way to virtually access this meeting?
Well, the legal department does the official notice, but my office absolutely alerted the public in the distribution of the agenda about the time, about the ability to comment, the different ways that they could submit comments to our office. We received one comment, so, for one of the public hearings that we are uploading to add to the comments that are available to view on the town. And we've given all of that information again that we provided at the last meeting. as to how to review comments, how to submit comments, public comments, etc. So I believe yes, it was noticed in a way that people can absolutely access this meeting today.
All right. And in terms of the agenda, there is a walk-on that I think the board all received, which is for the warrant number 33956. It's warrant number 8. Though I know, Jim, I was also looking for a second walk-on to accept the gift of 5,000
Yes.
masks, surgical
Yeah.
masks, and a gallon of gel hand sanitizer from
Yes, I have that.
Health Society.
I did receive it. Did the board receive it? I have
Yes,
the walk.
I did.
I
Yes,
received
and
it.
I have it in the packet too.
Okay, can you just give me the number, the docket ID?
It's
Sure.
the resolution ID is 33996.
Okay, and the title,
It's accept donation from Hampton Health Society of masks and sanitizer.
all right. All right, so what I'd like to do is make a motion to add both of these to our agenda. We'll take them up at the end. Number 33956, the warrant number 8, and 33996, accepting donation from Hampton Health Society for masks and sanitizer. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so those are taken up at the end. Next, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of our regular town board meeting of April 14th, 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Minutes are approved. All right, let's move on to communications. Sunday, would you please read the communications?
Certainly. The following communications have been received in the office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the town of East Hampton, Village of Quogue declaration of emergency extension dated 4/16/20, Village of Sag Harbor declaration of emergency renewal number 1 of 2020 dated 4/16 also, Village of Southampton public hearing notices regarding surf schools and surfboarding on ocean beaches. Village of West Hampton Beach declaration of emergency number 3 dated April 15th, financial disclosure statements from the listed individuals, and letters and emails have been received regarding the following. Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act for a proposed telecommunication facility at 484 McGee Street, Southampton. And that concludes our communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Sunday. So let's move on then to public hearings. We have 4 public hearings for today. I'm turning the page and confirming it. 4 public hearings. All right, the first public hearing, Sunday, would you read the notice?
Public hearing number 1, to consider amending Town Code Chapter 330 zoning to add Section 330-333 entitled Protection of Unmarked Graves.
Okay, and I'll remind the board that this is a series of steps one has to follow if they encounter during development human remains or likely human remains. It's very detailed in terms of what it, what the person must do or face some fairly strict penalties. We are waiting to have an open public hearing. So, it's okay, I think, because there's very little development of this type going on, if any. I don't think there's any really. So, but I know a lot of people would like to comment on this. So I'm going to make a motion. We'll have to ask if there's anyone who wishes to be heard, but I will be asking the board to adjourn it until May 26th, which is an evening meeting as well at Town Hall. And hopefully by then we'll be able to, who knows, be able to have a more normal public hearing. But normally I would have asked Deputy Attorney Kathleen Murray to introduce this, but I did alert Kathleen that I would be looking to adjourn it. And so I don't think she is on the line because of that. So let me go to, I guess, Charles. Do you know, is there anyone who wanted to be heard on this Graves Protection Act?
They would have to let me know by text, but no one's said anything yet to me. So.
Okay, and we will be, leaving the record open, adjourning it, so they could comment at a later date, but there's no way of knowing?
We did receive one communication today for
Okay.
the hearing that I distributed via email to the entire town board for
Okay.
your review.
Is
And we
it,
also added it online into the portal, and it spoke to the request of postponing this until there can be in-person testimony.
okay, do you feel the need to read it, or that's basically the gist of it? They were asking for...
Well, I didn't read the entire communication, but I did read that part of it, and then informed the individual who submitted it that it would be distributed to the town board and also added for the public viewing on the town portal.
We actually received 2 letters, and yes, they both asked to postpone, but I believe they were talking about public hearings 2 and 3.
Okay, that may be the case.
It may have been. I'm working remotely and I don't have access to my email to look at it at the same time as the meeting at the moment.
All right, and Charlie, the people who are in the waiting room, are they able to text you if they're wanting to speak at this hearing?
Yes, they can chat with me.
Okay, so nobody has indicated that they wish to be heard?
Not as yet.
All right, then I would like to then make a motion to adjourn to May 26th,
Second.
seconded by
Got us
Councilman
all off. I
Olivier.
just had to off.
I'm sorry, on the motion? Was there someone?
Just to clarify, Jay, that Deputy Town Attorney Christine Scalera is handling this matter with the unmarked graves. Kathleen is handling
the
public
marked
hearings 2 and 3. Just in case anybody wanted to talk to them between now and May 26th, it's Christine is handling the
Thank you,
unmarked
yes.
grave.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, we have one comment that was for both the chapter 330 and the chapter 323, and then one specific for just chapter 323, which is the next public hearing. So
Now, was it just
sometimes
asking,
when they write in, they comment on both. It's kind of a combination.
and was it asking for an adjournment?
Yes.
Okay.
The one that I read was asking for an adjournment to a date when there could be in-person comments made on the record.
Okay. Jim, do we have to state the name of the people, the individuals who are asking for that adjournment?
No, I don't think you need to do that. I think we understand that you acknowledge that there are people who have made comments and they're asking for the adjournment. We're complying with that request. And as you said, we're looking to adjourn this to a time when we'll have a true public hearing, whether it's the end of May or later.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second to adjourn to May 26th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, board. So that is adjourned. Sunday, would you read the second public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 2, to consider enacting Town Code Chapter 323, imposing a moratorium on certain development actions within particular areas of the hamlet of Shinnecock Hills.
All right. And let me, Jim, there are 2 of these. There's a slight difference between them. I believe that this first one just is the Fort Hill area and the Sugarloaf area and not the expanded boundary. And it basically would prohibit for 6 months anyone in the Sugarloaf area from, any construction requiring excavation and a building permit. And in the Fort Hill area, anyone building a new home would be subject to, they would not be able to progress it unless in either area they performed stage 1A and B archaeology. So that I'm going to be asking this and the next one to be adjourned. The only difference in the second one is the area with the stricter requirement that would apply to all excavation requiring a building permit would also include the Hawthorne Road area where human remains were recently found.
Right.
So it's a little bit bigger of an area that has the stricter guideline.
Right, that's correct. South of Montauk Highway, west of the Fort Hill area.
And somebody did ask me, if they could do landscaping under this moratorium. I said, if it doesn't require a building permit, it would not be affected.
Right, it's not digging, it's not excavation. Right.
Right. But it could be regrading, if somebody were regrading for, to put in a new structure, they would need a building permit, and therefore it would.
Then, yes, absolutely. Any type of excavation or regrading, I think, would have to be required.
Right. It prohibits the building inspector from actually
Right.
issuing a building permit.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so I sort of wish we can do these two together, but we'll do them separately. So I have to ask if there's anyone from the public who wishes to be heard on public hearing number 2.
Just, I want to interject for just a moment, Jay, because I'm getting emails from a couple asking why they can't get into the meeting right now. I just forwarded it to Charles. I'm not sure if they're interested in.
Everyone is in the meeting.
Okay, it's the last name is Cocke, Philip, and I'm just trying to open this up. And Susan, I forwarded you the email, Charles, so you can take a look and see.
Everyone that's asked to be in the meeting is in the meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
So, Charlie, did anybody wish to comment on this second public
I
hearing,
do
which I'm
have
going to
a-
be asking for that adjournment to the 26th as well?
I do have a hand from David
Donahue.
Donahue.
All right, do you want to bring him in?
Okay. Let's see.
He's in. I can see him. Hi,
Yeah.
David.
Who's in?
Hi, good afternoon, councilmen and council members. Thanks for letting me in the meeting. Here to speak on behalf of the two things that you're about to adjourn for the May meeting. Concerned about the 200 or so different residents that are going to be affected by this, wondering how it came about that this area was the only area designated for this. We know that the history and the ancestors of Southampton and the Hamptons in general, as well as most of Long Island, was inhabited by others prior to us settling. So I'd like to say that, this councilman and Southampton Town Preservation Society has done a great job of making some purchases over the past 10 years. Mary Wilson, Lisa Combrick, and Southampton Town really has preserved a lot of land. If you look at those highlighted areas in the pink are two of the purchases. And then we have two other recent purchases in your second additional area that has been added to this area of non-disturbance and this building moratorium. I don't think you guys are taking into account people that have owned properties for whether it's 2 weeks or 40 years. We have clear title to these properties. We have the rights to develop the properties. And I think that the community in general has been a very good neighbor to the Shinnecox and wants to continue to be that way. But to put this kind of moratorium in place, especially under the economic conditions that we're in, would hurt not only the residents, but also a lot of workers that might be looking for a job in building, construction, pool, or additions. So I'm glad you guys are going to adjourn this, because I think once the community that is involved here, as well as others who would like to protect the ancestral burial grounds and be respectful, would also like to be able to develop their properties in the same fashion that the rest of Southampton Town goes about doing business. So I think you really need to find a way that appeases both parties in not restricting Southampton Town residents in any way. The area that was just added, this Hawthorne Road area that you have brought in. I could tell you, and we were just talking about taxes earlier in the meeting, they pay an exorbitant amount of taxes, property taxes that go into the town's coffers. People are constantly improving their properties over there. And I think recently the town purchased one lot on Hawthorne Road about 10 years ago. The town was able to preserve a Montauk Highway parcel that wrapped around towards Peconic Road. And it's important for the residents and your constituency to have the development rights intact and respectfully handle the remains if under construction one were to run across anything that would be considered sacred or a burial ground or even an artifact. So I think you guys have to find a good way to appease both parties. But I don't think putting a moratorium in any area of Southampton and excluding the rest of Southampton from this and segregating this area is really not a proper way to go about business. So I hope you guys take into account these facts and push forward in a way that makes sense for everybody involved.
All right, thank you, David. All right, Charles, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard?
I don't see anyone else.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, I do have the names of the individuals if you'd like to know what they, that have submitted comments. Janine Abaticola, her comments related to public hearings 1, 2, and 3, and Ralph Carvala for hearings 2 and 3.
Okay. Thank you for that, Sunday. All right, so I would like to make a motion to adjourn this public hearing to May 26th. I think, Sunday, what's the time of that meeting right now? It's an evening meeting, 6 p.m.?
Yes.
6 p.m. That may get moved to a day meeting depending upon circumstance. But do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I'll be making the same motion on this next hearing, which is includes that Hawthorne area, as I mentioned. Sunday, would you read the third public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 3, to consider enacting Town Code Chapter 323, imposing a moratorium on certain development actions within particular areas of the hamlet of Shinnecock Hills.
Okay, I've already explained what this is. And I'll just say it again. This includes the expanded area along the water there to the south of the Fort Hill area and adjacent to the Sugarloaf area where human remains were found, I want to say about a year ago. It requires, if somebody wants to build in that area, a permit that requires excavation, they would have to do a basic level of archaeology before proceeding. Such archaeology could add a couple $1,000s to the cost of development. But it is in an area that is understood to be a burial ground or cemetery for the ancestral remains of the Shinnecock Nation. So that is why we're considering these steps, so we can look to see if additional regulations are needed on the books to protect these things. The other law I mentioned really is what you do when you encounter remains. This law is really to avoid disturbance of graves. So anyway, I'll go to, I guess, Charlie. I'm assuming, David, you want to speak on this, or or just use your comments on the last one as well. But Charles, is there anyone else besides Mr. Donahue that's on the
I have
list?
no one else that has contacted me.
Mr. Donahue, did you want to add any additional comments?
Yeah, I guess the question would be, how are we segregating out from one section, the initial 2 sections, and then adding on to this other section? It appears to be about an addition of 95 properties added to be impacted by this. And, I guess it goes in conjunction with the question of Shinnecock Hills is considered a pretty large area. It actually extends on beyond the tracks to the north. extends into Shinnecock Hills Golf Course, north of there, and of course west of Southway Road, from the bay to the tracks all the way into the village. And I'm just wondering how this small population within the Southampton residents gets, to have this kind of impact, extra potential costs associated with their properties, and the development would be hindered. I've owned a piece of property over in that area for, I would say, 26 years. I would say that the amount of property tax that I paid on that is probably somewhere in the realm of $250,000 to $300,000. And to be impacted by this and not be able to build a house finally is going to be quite extraordinary.
But it
I
doesn't,
know that other
Yeah, go ahead.
people
I'm sorry.
would also feel hindered by adding on to their house. There's a lot of modest homes in that area, as well as some nicely done new homes. And what we're seeing is an improvement of these homes and people enjoying their properties. And they're all clear title holders. So to kind of pull the rug out from under them, whether they've owned the property for a short period of time or a long period of time, it's interesting that this small percentage, what I'd say a small percentage, but it's at least 200 property owners, have been your constituents for many years, are going to be impacted while we've all been pro-supportive of these purchases
Sure.
of other land. So, once again, I feel like this is a situation where the town has to tread lightly. We're on a slippery slope here, and really need to take into account all the residents of Southampton, not just this area, and protect their rights as property owners.
Let me, David, if I may, try to answer your two questions as the sponsor of this legislation. It doesn't say you can't build. It just says before you build, you would do some very basic archaeological work to make sure that you weren't going to disturb a gravesite.
Understood. And, we were lucky enough to have a good builder at Hawthorne Road process that brought it to the attention of.
That is true. If I may, on the other point, why was this area chosen? So I didn't make the map. So the original map, the Fort Hill map and the Sugarloaf map, these are state recognized culturally sensitive areas. They're known to the Shinnecock as their burial areas and early habitation areas. That sensitivity exists. It's well documented. The only thing, though, that was changed in the second moratorium, based on the finding of human remains on Hawthorne, that area was added to the Sugarloaf area boundaries for the purposes of this moratorium. It just seemed disingenuous to not include that area when we know that, we have recent evidence of a burial in that area. It seemed like it ought to apply. So that was something I added on that one section to make it sort of contiguous with the Fort Hill area on the map. It creates a sort of a contiguous boundary. So and right now there's two different moratoriums, one that includes that area and one that does not include that area.
Right. And so you have a difference of about 95 properties or 95 residents that are going to be impacted by that. And once again, with due respect to the Indians and the potential for ancestral remains, the big hurdle comes into play when somebody is going even for a small addition on their house, or maybe a pool or a garage where excavation is necessary. And what happens if something is discovered with it, whether it's an artifact or some sort of burial? How does one go about continuing with their project? I think the idea is that as a society and being respectful, we'd like to reward people that are honest and straightforward and find something, and it's important to respect that, but it's also important to respect the rights of the property owners that have been just involved with the community, paying taxes and, paying exorbitant amounts of money to live in Southampton. If you want to buy a ranch and put on a pool and maybe an expansion, what is the process that that person then can continue? It should be maybe something to the fact of properly handling those remains and handing them off to the Shinnecocks. We have a lot of beautiful.
So that's really the first law, right? That details what you do, not for artifacts, but for funerary artifacts. If it's a funerary object or if it's human remains, that's triggered in that first law. So even if you did archaeology on a property and it looked like you wouldn't be disturbing anything, but then you did excavate and you found human remains or a funerary object, that would then be fall under that first law, and you'd have to follow those procedures, which, yes, it may involve handing off those objects to the Shinnecock Nation or an avoidance plan or a reinterment plan. That law outlines exactly those procedures in a way that it will move very quickly, we believe, so that somebody isn't waiting years to figure out what to do if they can proceed with their development project. And it also includes the possibility of preservation, like we saw on Hawthorne Road, where we had a developer who was, willing to sell that property to the town if the town has the money available.
Right. So, no, I appreciate that. So what I guess I'm concerned is why do we need a moratorium on this, while you had just said earlier in the meeting that there's really not that much activity going on. There's very few properties. But individually, I'm sure there's a handful of people looking to expand on their house, potentially put in an accessory structure or pool. And you have a very challenged economy right now with lots of different workers out of work, sitting on the sidelines, and hopefully back to work sometime in the next 6 months. And to put these kind of hindrances on, why don't you guys just work on the laws at hand and have public comment on that while your residents continue with their, potential plans?
All I will say on that is that these laws were drafted before the pandemic. I didn't know at the time that construction would come to a grinding halt. And with that understanding and the fact that people can't really come to a public hearing is why we are adjourning it. And normally I would not want a moratorium proposal to go on for a long time in consideration, because it often leads people to rush to develop before the moratorium kicks in. So I'm not thrilled with the situation we're in. Nobody is. We're all pretty upset about this healthcare crisis. So, but it was put in prior to this pandemic. And again, I'm going to be asking for this to be adjourned so that other people can comment in person on it. And I think you'll find that there's people on both sides of this. There's obviously a large contingent of people who have been asking for something like this for a very long time. It's something that the board will have to wrestle with and decide whether a moratorium is the right action in the interim while we evaluate our laws that are in place to see if this is the right step to allow for the board to consider other steps.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, David.
Understood.
Charlie, back to you. Anyone else who has indicated they'd like to speak on this third public hearing? I see the flag. I don't see.
We do have someone who wants to speak, but I don't have any audio from them.
Oh, I see a woman.
Myers.
Maybe is muted.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you're trying to speak. Okay, I see you.
If she can chat with me, I'll ask the question.
Well, first, look. What's her first name? Sure.
Myers. Myers Bartlett.
Oh, Myers. Okay. Myers, look.
Yeah.
If you could look on your Zoom screen and see if you're muted. Bottom left, typically.
Let's see. Let me see if
She's
I
connecting now. She's unmuted. Okay.
Now she's muted.
All right, Myers, you have the floor.
Audio's connecting. Yeah.
It's connected, but she's muted.
I'm still not hearing you. Hold on, Myers.
There it is.
I believe I'm with you now.
There you go.
Okay, you have 3 minutes, Myers.
Thank you. I just, as you know, I was the previous owner of the lot of land that the developer sold to me on Hawthorne Road. So at the time, because I was intricately involved in this with the investigation and everything, not only the Shinnecock, but the Preservation Commission was very curious who owned the lot of land across the street from 10 Hawthorne Road. I actually let the homeowner know that because I'm also president of the Homeowners Association. I'm very curious to find that just recently the Preservation Commission passed on purchasing this land, and it didn't make sense to me at the time based on everything that had been said. I know that every owner that had available land, a letter was sent out from the Preservation Commission at that time. I believe, Dave, maybe you might have even gotten one of those about his lot of land. And since that time, there's been an incredible amount of development in this area. Many of it, I can't believe they haven't found, because if I understand the burial traditions, it is a sensitive area. So I'm very curious why the Preservation Commission passed on this lot of land. And then I found out about the moratorium, which I had missed in April, and I just found out about it recently. And I'm wondering if these two things are tied, because to me, that's what the Preservation Commission money is for. If this is obviously there's a lot of land undeveloped that they're passing on buying. And
Myers, I don't know about that. All I know is that we've put a high priority on acquisitions in this area. We can only work with willing sellers.
He was very willing. He went back to them. He was very willing.
Yeah, and I don't recall the board discussing this. So I'll have to check with Lisa Combrink, who may be on this conference call or this meeting. But if somebody's price doesn't match the appraised value, we can never pay more than the appraised, the certified value of the property. That sometimes.
No, he knew that. He knew that, and you were paying fair market value. So they passed on. They passed on the purchase. They passed on the purchase.
Well, the CPF committee is an advisory committee. The town board is the ultimate authority on this. And this is not really pertaining to this public hearing. This is a separate issue. So, but
I guess if I was that homeowner, how I would feel is that now, it's going to be very difficult to develop the land. I would personally hope he didn't develop the land, but if he wanted to, whereas when it's already a very sensitive area that we know things have been found, would not the more beneficial thing, or finding that happy medium, be for the town to buy that lot of land? You're developing eventually, I guess, if we get to it, it's supposed to be developed.
Yeah, these negotiations are, typically confidential. Let me though, is Lisa Combrink, our CPF manager, on the call?
I think she is, yes. Let me unmute her. Yes, I just unmuted her.
All right, I don't see her, but if she wants to say something. Lisa, did you
There
want
she
to?
is.
Here I am. Yes, I will certainly check on that property. I did meet with the property owner, so I can go back and review the circumstances of that. Happy to do that, and I can report back to the board.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, thank you, Myers.
Thank you.
All right, Charles, anyone else who wishes to be heard on this third public hearing?
Not as yet. No.
Okay, and I am gonna make a motion to adjourn it. So if somebody does not get to be heard today, they can get heard on the 26th. All right, so how about as of yet?
No.
Okay, then I will, and the clerk, you're not aware of anyone else wishing to be heard on this other than the names you mentioned before for adjournment?
No,
Okay.
I am not.
All right, I will make a motion to adjourn till May 26th at 6 p.m.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, board. Madam Clerk, would you read the fourth public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 4 for the consideration of one-year agricultural use agreements for 2020-2021.
All right, and I'm not sure who is introducing this. Is this Lisa Gore or Lisa Combrink?
This is my department, Jay.
Okay, so Lisa Gore, our tax assessor, is on this Zoom meeting and can answer any questions about this. Lisa, do you want to just give a quick explanation about what this is?
Yeah, this is an annual process. Every year we have to send out annual renewal notices to the agricultural owners that are in the 1-year ag use program. And it just has to go through this process of a public hearing. We typically do not have anyone that participates in the public hearing process, but being that we're in this situation this year, I, thought it would be good for me to just log on to the meeting just in case anyone had any questions.
All right, thank you, Lisa.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Charlie, is there anyone who's requested to be heard at this 4th public hearing?
I'm looking at the moment. I don't see any at the moment. No.
Okay, and let me just see if the board has any questions for our tax assessor, our sole tax assessor. I have to say the title correctly.
Sole assessor.
Sole assessor. Did I get that right, Lisa?
Yep.
Okay, our sole assessor. All right, so there seems to be no questions.
So,
Okay, so thank you, Lisa, for coming on.
Sure.
Do we need to leave the record open? I think we do, Jim, right? So we can close it for verbal comments and leave the
Yes.
record open
Yeah.
2 weeks. Is that okay with you, Lisa?
That's fine.
I don't know what the time frame is on this. Okay, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for verbal comments and leave the record open for 2 weeks for written comments.
I'll second that as a sponsor.
All right, seconded by Councilman Scivone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So that gets us to the end of the public hearings. We'll move on to public portion. And I guess, Charles, do we have anybody who wishes to make any general comments?
I am looking.
Public portion?
I have none.
You have none. And what about all the people in that, what'd you call it, the waiting room?
Well, they can either they can chat with me. All those people can chat with me. If they have a question, they can ask me.
Okay.
There's quite a few people in there.
So we might have to reopen public portion if need be. But at this point, then I'll make a motion to close public portion, and then we can move on to the resolutions. Do I have a second to close public portion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so let's go to the resolutions. And Councilman Bouvier, you're sponsoring the first one. Would you please read?
Town Board Resolution 2020-437, grant of conservation easement from Blair K. Gaza for property to be maintained as open space located at North Sea, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-46-2-48, pursuant to Southampton Tax Code Chapter 244-4, obtaining of development right certificate, and Chapter 247 General Municipal Law of the State of New York.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. Jim, we had a public hearing on this. Did we leave the record open for 2 weeks? Is it now closed?
So the public hearing was held on the 14th. We had it open for 2 weeks, I believe. So
So we're okay then to vote today.
yeah.
So the record closed today. All right.
Yeah.
Did we receive any comments on it?
Good note, I was just going to say that I have received no comments on this.
Okay. All right. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-438, accept a deed of residual fee from Blair K. Gaza for property maintained as open space located at Flanders, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-145-3-22, pursuant to Southampton Town Code Chapter 244-4, obtaining a development right certificate, and Chapter 247 General Municipal Law of the State of New York.
Second.
All right. Seconded by Councilman Scivone. Jim, I'll ask the same question, just making sure it's eligible for a vote.
Yeah, we did, it wasn't specifically on this resolution, but we did receive some comments from a resident of Flanders about the public hearing on this last week. you didn't have any specific comments about this, but you just had concerns about holding the public hearing on this matter at this time.
Yeah, I'll confirm that, and I felt it was a comment in general about holding public hearings on these things. And
Right.
Yeah, and I'll remind the board, in this case, there's no development that's going to be occurring on the property in question. It's something that will be acquiring a conservation easement.
Right. It's actually it preserves the property. Right.
Right. So we're actually getting fee ownership of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In exchange for a development right, a partial development right that will be used somewhere else.
Right. And this is in a block of a lot of preserved property that the town and the county owns.
So maybe that will allay maybe the fears of the person who contacted the board about holding the public hearing, but there's no action involved other than preservation here. I'm not saying that preservation sometimes doesn't have its opponents, but this lot is not typically developable to begin with. So even without this, it would be very hard to put a structure, right, Jim, on a property like this?
Yes, it's very undersized, as well as I think it has other issues, as far as wetlands and in the area.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, just a comment on public hearings, that we're going to be meeting like this moving forward, and we're going to have public hearings. And this is a good first public hearing to do for the reasons that you stated, that we get used to having these public hearings and the public gets used to speaking to us in this manner.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I hope it doesn't go on too long.
Right.
But Charles, is there anyone who indicated they wanted to be heard? Oh, no, this is not a public hearing. It's just a resolution. So we can then go ahead and, as long as it's eligible for a vote, Jim, you said it was?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, approved. All right, Tommy John?
Authorize Town Board Resolution 2020-441 to authorize the supervisor to renew the purchase of network hardware and software maintenance from CCSI.
second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right, Resolution 442 of 2020 authorizes the Hampton Bays Volunteer Ambulance Corp. To move internal funds.
Second.
There's an amendment required on this resolution.
Okay, hold on. So we had a second by Councilman Scavone. Sunday, go ahead.
There's an amendment required on this resolution. When it was created, an error of including the Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Corps rather than referring to the Hampton Bays Volunteer Ambulance Corps. So in the second line, it refers to the Southampton Volunteer Ambulance. That needs to be removed, and in the Hampton Bays Volunteer needs to be inserted.
Yes. It has Hampton Bays later on in the resolution, just in that one
All
spot.
right, so I'm going
Correct.
to withdraw my motion to approve. I will make a motion to amend removing Southampton Volunteer Ambulance in the first whereas clause and replacing it by Hampton Bays Volunteer Ambulance Corps.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, now I'll make a motion to approve as amended. Same second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Okay, Town Board Resolution 443 of 2020 authorized the purchase of a 2021 International MV 607 from Onagon County contract.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 444 of 2020 authorized the purchase of maintenance renewal of Great Plains software with Interdyne, aka N/K/A, aka Enterprise Solutions.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-445 Authorize the supervisor to execute a 2020 facility use agreement and any other related documents necessary with St. Rosalie's Roman Catholic Church for parking lot space located at the church for overflow parking for the concerts at Good Ground Park.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-446, authorize the supervisor to execute a consulting contract with H2M Architects, Engineers, Land Surveying, et al. To provide on-call engineering services to the Hampton Bays Water District.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right, 447 of 2020 authorizes the supervisor to execute a contract with Long Island Electric Utility Servco LLC as agent of Long Island Lighting Company, LIPA, in furtherance of Cliff Drive Underground Utility Improvement District. Do I have a
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, Julie?
Abstain.
Abstain. One abstention. All right.
Town Board Resolution
So just
448.
tell me, John, before you go on, just a clerk, you noted the one abstention and the rest of the board was affirmative.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Go ahead, Tommy John.
Town Board Resolution 448 of 2020. Authorize the supervisor to renew the town's maintenance agreement with Maxwell Vault LLC, a Printerlogic Incorporated document management software.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 449 of 2020 Joint Municipal Cooperative Bidding Program.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-450, recall and amend the Town Board Resolution 2020-378 for the 2020 summer agreements.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
2020-451, Town Board Resolution, the 2020 notice to bidders for the mobile food concession commencing in 2020 summer season for mobile concessions at Mecox Beach.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-452, the 2020 notice to bidders for used wheel loader.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
2020-453, Town Board Resolution, notice to bidders for mobile ice cream truck concessions with W. Scott Cameron Beach.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-454, accept donation of funds from the Rotary Club of Hampton Bays for water station.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 455 of 2020 amends the 2020 adopted budget for CPF land purchases.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 456 of 2020 amends the 2020 adopted budget for fire prevention.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 457 amends the 20 through 24 capital budget for water district wellhead treatment for plant number 1.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 458 resolution adopting the provisions of Executive Order 202.22, suspending the provisions of Article 5 of the Real Property Tax Law and authorizing the adoption of various provisions to replace the suspended portion of Article 5. we might want to explain this a little. Jim, this is delaying the assessment roll, right? Is that
That's correct. I don't know if Lisa's still on the line, but it actually provides the town residents a larger period of time to file for the grievance. Of course, we're going to continue this, keep the same beginning date of May 1st, which normally would expire this year, would have been scheduled to expire on May 18th, have the grievance day on the 18th, but we're going to continue that date from May 1st to June 23rd. So the residents will have almost 2 months to file their grievance. And on June 23rd, the Board of Assessment Review will hear complaints if anybody wants to speak with them. We're not exactly sure at this point exactly how that's going to work, whether at that time we'll still need to do either a Zoom or conference call. Lisa and I have been on contact with other towns and see what they're doing. We're fortunate in our town that we've instituted an electric filing system to file for grievances many years back. So we're a little bit ahead of the game as far as filing grievances. But that's what this effect is essentially. It pushes back the last grievance date from May 18th to June 23rd, and so it gives people, our residents, additional time.
okay? Any questions for Jim about that? Jim, there's no in-person grievance now; it's all online.
June 20. At that time we'll consider. At this point, speaking with Lisa and speaking with some of the other towns, we may institute some type of either a Zoom or a phone conference on that date, depending on where we are as a state and a county and a town at that time. But as I said, this does extend people's time to go from 3 weeks to 2 months.
And this was specifically authorized by the state to allow.
That is correct. Yeah. That is,
okay. So, any other questions? All right. Did I have a second?
I don't see a second here.
All right. All right. John, Councilman Bouvier is seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Resolution 2459, authorization cost reimbursement waiver for Hampton Bays Fire Department Carnival from July 28th to August 2nd, 2020.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All I can say is I hope that we're able to waive these costs, which would mean that the fire department carnival will happen. So let's all hope that things get back to normal so that this is July 28th to August 2nd. It would be nice to be able to have an event like this again. So, but I certainly support the cost waiver. So, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So it's for the next resolution. Town Board Resolution 2020-460 is the authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Hampton Bays Fire Department Parade on July 29th, 2020 from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
All right.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lostad. I echo the same sentiment. I'm looking forward to parades again. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Approved 461 of 2020 authorizes CPF tax refund pursuant to the first-time homebuyers exemption for Selvin Maldonado.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 462 of 2020 authorizes Community Preservation Fund tax refund pursuant to the first-time homebuyers exemption for Jolyn Day. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 463 of 2020 accepts retirement of Cheryl Kraft, Chief Fire Marshal in Public Safety.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. Just on the motion, Cheryl has been our Chief Fire Marshal for much longer than I've been your supervisor.
Much longer.
even longer than I was your legislator. So I don't even know how many years, but I know she has been here for
Over 30.
over 30 years. Somebody said.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's done a great job in that capacity. I think it's important to see Berkeley a pioneer, a woman in a role as chief fire marshal. I think was an important message to everyone, and Cheryl executed it very well. And we will, certainly miss Cheryl, but we will wish her the very best in her retirement and thank her for her many years of excellent service to the town.
Yeah. She was a wealth of knowledge in my dealings with her. She really knew the code and the state code and the town codes is better than anybody that I know. So she's great.
I'm just going to chime in because as town clerk, I worked with Cheryl prior when I was in the Parks Department, but as town clerk, she really was on her game with special events and all of the information that she provided and supported us with. She really did an excellent job and was always 100% in her efforts to work with us. And we will miss her and thank her for her service.
Absolutely.
I want to echo those remarks. Cheryl really knew the fire service, and she brought that expertise to bear in the town of Southampton and really served the people of the town quite well. The vast institutional knowledge that she has is impressive. So we wish her well in her retirement.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Good luck, Cheryl. Happy retirement.
Enjoy. Bye.
It is in a male-dominated profession like that. It's really great to see a woman who sets such a strong example, I think, of leadership, and maybe helps to change some of those societal biases in some ways. So I think so. She's a real trailblazer as chief fire marshal and did a really phenomenal job.
I have to say, I remember my grandfather many years ago carrying on about Cheryl because he was involved in the fire department because she got 100 on her test. That was the greatest thing ever. So yes, as a woman in that day and age and coming into that type of position, that she was, at the top of her.
You're held to a very high standard.
Yes.
In a situation like that, and she met that standard and exceeded it. So. All right. Well, again, thank you, Cheryl. Well, let's take a vote on accepting the retirement. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved, and best wishes to Cheryl. All right. 464 of 2020 accepts retirement of Virginia Bennett. Community Organization Specialist in Housing and Community Services. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Lofstad. I have nothing but wonderful things to say about V too. I mean, V has been extraordinary. What a compassionate human being. She's administered all these grants for us. She's done the Angel Flight program, taking veterans to Washington, to the war memorials. Working with all of our community organizations. She is so passionate about our community, and I've never met anyone who had anything negative to say about V. She's really been terrific, and we're gonna really miss her. We, of course, she's earned her retirement. We wish her the best. But what a great public servant V has been, and thank you, V, for all that you have done for us.
I've had so many things involved with V, particularly with our Cablevision Fund and trying to find funding for our different activities across the town, and she's always been there. I remember on my first day in town hall with a great big smile and great willingness to always help. And I'll personally really miss her. I miss her smile. I miss her being there. And I miss my conversations with her, trying to get $1,000 here or $1,000 there for one program or another, and all the work that she's done with veterans. I can't thank you enough, V, and enjoy your vacation that's how you described it. Your Saturdays and Sundays now will always be Saturdays and Sundays, but I certainly will miss you and certainly wish you the best of luck in the future. Thank you.
And I'll echo that. I first met V before I was in my town job. She was very, very helpful then. And when I started this job, she was, again, very, very helpful, again, also with the smile all the time. So V, have a great weekend forever.
Well, we're all going to miss V, and I have a sneaking suspicion she's going to miss us too. She really enjoys what she does, so we wish her the best. So we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And congratulations.
Congratulations, and yeah, best of luck in retirement, V. All right. So let's see. Am I skipping one?
Last 465.
Yeah, 465. This is on page 26, 465 of 2020. Resolution setting a public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 178, East Quogue Public Drinking Water Infrastructure Improvement Program to address eligibility criteria and limit the amount refunded to an eligible property owner.
Second.
Second, this will be a public hearing on Tuesday, May 2nd at 1 p.m. A second was Councilman Lofstad.
May 12th.
What did I say? May 12th. Did I say the wrong date?
Yeah.
Okay, May 12th at 1 p.m. And
I do have a question before we vote. Along with this public hearing, will we be getting will the Water Quality Review Board be hearing this applicant or this hearing, excuse me, this resolution? And will that be part of the public hearing?
John, maybe that's a question for you. Let me just first say what this hearing is on. This would set a cap on how much an individual could get for if the town is paying for their water hookup in these compromised areas. It also expands the eligibility area, those areas where we will, even without a property owner having demonstrated a test with contamination of PFAS or PFOA or similar compound, where these areas which we know the drinking water supply is compromised, we have been allowing those property owners to hook up and be reimbursed by the town. We're including additional areas. Before we had a map that was sort of to the south of the Damascus Road landfill. Now we're including some areas to the north and areas in Quogue into that portion of the program. This is something that Councilman Lofstad worked very hard on. And I think it's important now that we have some of the test results from the county in that area, that these homeowners be afforded the same benefit to the greatest of the town's ability that others have been able to get. John, there was a question. I don't remember now what the question was, but I somehow thought that you would be best qualified to answer it.
It's about the Water Quality Board reviewing this.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think Lisa's on if you want to get any more details on that. Typically, what they're reviewing are infrastructure projects that phased over time, you know, like we've done in West Hampton Beach and other villages. I'm not entirely sure what the extent of their involvement is in review of this application. I know for certainly that they've offered an opinion on it and have deliberated about it, but whether they're not involved in the decision process. But I think Lisa is still on.
And Don, this is basically an expansion. This is an expansion of eligibility in an existing program where we have budgeted a certain amount, I think $4 million toward this, and there's still funds that are available. So we're not adding additional money to it, just allowing more people to access those funds in a similar area. But Lisa, did you want to say anything on this, or Jim?
I think Lisa's, you got to unmute, Lisa. Oh, she's.
Sorry, I just wanted to concur with what John said, that the advisory board typically would review projects specific to a location, not necessarily this type of reimbursement program. So, I mean, we could forward it to them, but they have not commented on any of the previous iterations of this local law.
Okay.
They did?
They
This-
did not. They did not. We're not asked to.
This also sets a cap of $10,000 per grant.
Well, considering the expansion, I think it's worthy to have them take a look at this and at least give an opinion on it.
We were planning on having a call sometime in May. I don't know whether it would be before this public hearing, but perhaps if it was not, you could leave the hearing open for 2 weeks to have their comments.
All right, well, you're right. And this is just to set the public hearing.
Right.
Not to have, not having the public hearing, but setting the public hearing and.
Right. I do want to make the distinction that the Water Quality Board, typically what they're looking at are infrastructure projects, things involving water quality directly, contributions of water to the bay, contamination, nitrogen levels, things like that, and infrastructure to fix that. I know that they're aware of that, but they're not specifically involved in that decision process because this is basically to hook up water to homes where their private wells or wells have been shown to be contaminated to some degree. So there is a difference. I would welcome their opinion, but I'm not sure how much they could add to that.
Well, considering it's being funded by Water Quality, I think it's germane to our decision to have them involved in the process.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile too. Yeah, and
Agree with
if they haven't had any review, and they should review it. I would
Yeah.
agree.
I don't
Right.
disagree at all, but typically they've not been.
I'll make sure that the legislation, including the earlier versions, are referred to the committee, the advisory board, and we can discuss it by phone at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I read the resolution. Was there a second to setting the hearing? There was, Councilman Lofstad. Okay, then I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so that is approved. All right, let's go to the walk-ons. There were two. First one is 33956. It's warrant number 8, capital number 8, CPF number 8, and payroll liability. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. The last hearing, 33996, I'm sorry, the last resolution, 33996, accepts donation from Hampton's Health Society for masks and sanitizers. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Lofstad. Just on the resolution, boy, we're very fortunate to live in a very giving community. And this group, Hampton's Health Society, they don't really want to be in front. They don't even like having their name mentioned. They don't. They want to really just be relatively anonymous, but they have been extraordinary. They raised money for 5 ventilators for the hospital, for PPE for the hospital, for all kinds of equipment and training for the hospital. And they have also procured a lot of masks and sanitizers. So the other day, I was given 7,000 surgical masks and a gallon of the gel hand sanitizer, which I handed over to Ryan Murphy, who's already in communication with the schools. So we're going to use the schools to get this out through their meal programs. This is free to anyone who may need a surgical mask. We're going to try to get them to, families throughout Hampton Bays, East Quogue, through the whole town. So I'm really grateful for these individuals who are making this happen. I'm going to say something else about them before we close, but at this point, we have a motion and a second to accept the donation. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Does anybody else wanted to say something on that? Tommy John, you looked like you wanted to
No,
say.
just that I think that our first responders may be in need for some of the masks too. And
Yeah,
I'll reach out to them to see how they're doing, so we can
right. We
augment
did.
that if necessary.
We reserved some of them for town use. The Parks Department is going to get some of them, and yeah, just check with Ryan.
Okay.
I think we're looking at maybe 5,000 toward the schools, and so we'll have an additional 2,000 for town use. And there may be more where this came from too. I know a gift was just made to the village of another 3,000 masks to Southampton Village. So a couple things before we close. I did issue an executive order extending the executive order to May 15th. It would have expired tomorrow, the current, the townwide emergency order. So now it's going to the 15th. That corresponds with the governor's order. I can't say what happens after May 15th. None of us know. We're all hoping things can get back to normal. There's lots of conversations happening, extensive conversations with the Parks Department. There's efforts with the zoning board and the planning board. In fact, I think they do have dates for meetings that are being set up via Zoom. You know, we certainly apologize for the inconvenience to the public. We're all doing our best to try to maintain open government and allow public participation to the greatest degree possible. These are challenging times, and we're doing our best to perform basic functions as a town. The AFD program that you supported at our last meeting with $150,000, I just want to mention that separately from that, that group, All for the East End, has fundraised an additional $450,000. So they're over $600,000 now that they've raised, all for the food pantries and food relief. So $600,000 with our donation, and it's you know, there's food pantries are seeing a fourfold increase in the amount of families that are seeking assistance. So it's really important. I don't know how much is going to be needed. I know that that group is looking to raise $1 million for food relief, at least for now, and potentially more later on. But Councilman Martell was part of the working group that helped put that together. So thank you, Councilman Martell, and we're gonna, continue to do what we can to support efforts like that. Another thing that's going on and wouldn't be happening without that Hampton Health Society that I mentioned before, that the same group that donated the mask have raised $20,000 to be used towards setting up an East End, a South Fork testing facility for COVID-19. That facility is now scheduled to open at the clinic, the health clinic that's near the hospital on Meeting House Road. And it's going to open this Thursday, 10 a.m. You have to have an appointment to be tested. There's a phone number that's being publicized. I don't have it in front of me, but you can make an appointment as long as you have a symptom of COVID-19 or been in close contact. If you have insurance, it will cover it. If you don't have insurance, that group, the Hamptons Health Society, will cover the cost of your test. For anyone on the South Fork, anyone from East Hampton or Southampton, so from Montauk to Eastport, they are eligible for a free test. So they are promoting this in both English and Spanish. And getting tested is not just about your own personal health. It's about the people around you and our community at large. If you are positive, we want you to know it and take the necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. So, once again, hats off to that group. Also, Village Mayor Jesse Warren was really instrumental in putting the pieces together. The Southampton Hospital played a role. The county played a role. And of course, all of you have been supportive. We've all been asking for a South Fork testing facility. So starting this Thursday and every Tuesday and Thursday for the next couple months, this site will be up and running. And other than that, I don't have any other business. Certainly, just wish that I see there's other people may. So let me,
Excuse me, I just have one question. I did not hear a second on the last resolution walk-on. Could you?
okay, that was accepting the donation.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie.
And Jay, I actually do have the phone number to make an appointment for the test. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
The number is 845-553-8030.
Okay, excellent. All right. So is there any other business? All right, seeing none, again, thank you, board, and thank you, public, for, participating in these meetings. We're doing our best. And everybody, please do what you can to slow the spread, stop the spread, wear the masks out in public, maintain social distancing, wash your hands frequently. I know it's hard to be at home for such a long period. The numbers are looking better. That's a good sign. We are seeming to bend that curve downward, and we're already starting to look at how to open things up a little bit. And we wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the public really being diligent about these precautionary measures. So thank you all. And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Oh, we do have executive session. Sorry. So we're going to adjourn the meeting. We'll close it and adjourn to executive session. The board has been provided information for a conference call, and that executive session will be on CPF acquisition and personnel. So I just got to amend my motion to adjourn. I'm making a motion to adjourn the meeting and go into executive session on those items. So I have a second. Second, Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned for all other purposes. Thank you.
Thank you.